Hi, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So thanks for coming to our professional development lunch talk. Today's topic is on time management, communication, and managing conflict. So we have a few different goals for today's session. We want to help you to brainstorm ideas that can help you to implement during the semester to help you with becoming more motivated, establishing better follow through, and building some more effective study skills. We're also going to go over different methods that folks bring when they're trying to communicate and how that can be taken into account when you're trying to learn to manage conflict in a healthy way. And also kind of learning to establish a little bit of boundaries and realizing when you need to take a step back and how to manage conflict in the best way possible.
Okay, so to start off, we'll talk about a little bit of how you can effectively study. And so I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this before, where you can categorize different learning styles as visual, auditory, kinesthetic, reading, writing, and logical. Um, and you may have been told like, oh, you have to be one of these types for learning, just one. But in reality, it's you can be multiple different types, and you can even learn better in different areas depending on what the subject is. Oops. So for example, you could be better at learning visually for something that would be best displayed as a diagram or something like how a heat engine works or something like that. Whereas auditory might be better for like learning the sounds of different bird calls or something like that. And it's also been shown that people unanimously learn better when they're shown multiple different types at the same time. So you can think about that. And also you should think about, are you better learning solitary by yourself or in a group of people where you can study together and ask each other questions? Some people like it better that way, and some people might find it more comfortable just to be by themselves and um, be alone and quiet. And always remember, your professors are always here to help. Don't be afraid to ask them questions, and also your peers as well. We are all in this together, and so don't be afraid to ask. Um, so next we'll talk about time management techniques, and there's a really good method for this called the Pomodoro method, where you basically schedule breaks for yourself in between your studying so that you don't study all at once for too long and then get burnt out. And there's these websites that you can go to where you can set up a timer like that for yourself. And so those are really helpful. Specifically, this Life at IO website will have a camera, people walking around in different locations around the world. And so you can use those to study and feel like you're exploring at the same time. And also a really helpful thing to do is always to set to-do lists and make events in your calendar so you don't forget things that you have planned. And there's this really great app that we like to use for this called Todoist. It's free on the App Store, and there's a website as well, and you can just download it and start making to-do items for yourself and then checking them off when you're done. It always feels good to cross things off of your to-do list when you finish something. And also you can figure out, are you someone that's able to multitask while you're working? Do you like to watch TV or listen to music in the background? Some people can do that and others can't. So figure out what works best for you. Um, uh, I know specifically I like to listen to music without words in the background because sometimes I find the words to be distracting. So I like classical music and things like that. But definitely just figure out what kind of music works for you, or if you just like total silence as well. And always, I know it's not easy to get started early on things, but whenever you can, if you have a free moment and you have homework that's due in the next week or something, you can try to get started on it early if you're able to. and that always helps relieve stress when you're getting close to the deadlines. And so that again gets back to planning time out in advance for when you're going to work on things, and always remember to stay motivated. Working with a friend is a good way to make sure you stay accountable for when you're going to work on something, so you can plan to do something together with friends. And always keep remembering to schedule those breaks for yourself, and remind yourself every so often the big picture. Why are you doing this? And that's always good to keep in mind.
Yeah, so it's also important to know when to stop, because there comes a certain point whenever just continuing to work is not worth it. It's just not good for you. So some signals that it might be time to stop. If things aren't making sense, if you see yourself kind of making the same mistakes over and over again in your homework, if you're noticing yourself getting overly stressed out or tired. One piece of advice that I received once that honestly kind of changed my life, kind of changed my outlook on things, was that after a certain point, like in the evening, for me, it's like around midnight, any work you do after that period of time is just going to be bad, and you're not going to get like full credit on it anyways. And so it's not worth staying up and doing that work, because it's just not worth it grade wise. So you may as well just go to sleep and wake up in the morning refreshed and do it then. And honestly, that changed my whole approach to studying. So yeah, if you're just getting overly tired, it's time to stop. If you notice yourself kind of staring blankly at the page for more than a couple minutes, just trying to figure stuff out, it's time to stop and just ask someone for help maybe. But yeah, it's really important to note that overstudying might make things worse, actually. Again, there kind of comes a point where you can't really absorb much more and you're just stressing yourself out. Cramming right before a test is a really good example of this, like 15 minutes before the test. Your time is better used, maybe getting a drink or a snack, or just sitting listening to some music than trying to cram a bunch of information in. And it's also really important, I know that this is a really hard hammered point in high school especially, but it's really important that you get a good night's sleep before tests, just so your brain is working at 100% capacity and that you're not fatigued or anything, and that doesn't distract you from the exam. So now on to communication. Communication can be difficult for everyone, but it's really integral to daily life. It's used every day. We communicate with each other, but it can be difficult to communicate what we're feeling, especially if we're not in a mentally healthy space, or if our mental health isn't up to speed 100%. So just some tips for communication if maybe you're not feeling 100% is don't be afraid to say that you're struggling. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because others are here to help you. Especially in academia, I find that your peers often are here to help you if you're behind on homework, or if you just like need someone to talk to. And professors, especially like in office hours, asking for help on homework and stuff like that. These resources are here to help you, and you should never feel afraid to ask for help. It takes practice to be not afraid to ask for help, but the way to kind of get over that hurdle I've found is to just start doing it. And eventually you'll become, comfortable asking for help, but never be afraid to do that, because resources are here for you. If someone does something that upsets you, speak up, because nothing can be fixed if someone doesn't know that they've hurt you. So it's really important to not kind of dwell on that and kind of let it, boil over, and then you explode at someone. But rather instead, in the moment, whenever they make you upset, let them know and speak up about that. Sometimes you feel like you can't communicate and you just shut down. This happens. I feel like everyone's been here where, sometimes you just need to take a day, some more time to just collect your thoughts, collect your feelings, just kind of figure it out. So yeah, take that time, get yourself into a mentally stable place, and then reach out to others. Sometimes I know I'm definitely one of these people who feels like communication is easier through texting or like email rather than doing it face to face. Don't be ashamed if that's you, if that's what works for you. Just make sure to communicate your feelings in some way. Don't leave people kind of, in the dark of how you're feeling if you're feeling some kind of way about something. But yeah, just do whatever works for you and make sure that you get yourself into a good place before, if you feel like you can't communicate.
So next we're going to cover the different conflict styles as we go into how to manage conflict. So conflict is an unavoidable part of life, and how you manage it can make it as minimally stressful as possible for you, or it can be something that weighs on you, how to resolve it. So conflict styles can affect the way that you approach trying to come to a resolution. So if you're trying to come to an agreement with someone else, actively listen to their perceptions of the conflict and try to find a middle ground. It can be difficult at first, and it can be difficult to see the other side, but just take a step back, take a breath, and try to understand what the other person is telling you. Talking the situation over with a mentor or trusted faculty member can also be a useful way to untangle feelings and establish a path forward. Like Phoebe said, resources are available to you. Our faculty is here for you, and there are people that want to try to give help with personal situations, academia, any other kind of situation. So you can see here on the right, this graph kind of showing different conflict styles. So there's varying conflict styles, going from avoiding, where one or both parties just avoid the entire conflict together and it just festers, to competing, where one party is seeking to satisfy their own interests regardless of how it impacts the other party. As you can see, the source is down below. These two tend to be the least helpful at resolving conflict. Ideally, you'd aim for a collaborating agreement where both parties win, but more often than not, you're going to end up with a compromise where both parties win and both parties give up something. As far as managing conflict, learning how to manage that conflict regardless of your conflict style is an essential skill to learn for grad school and for your own life. So some good steps to take that we've put on here is firstly to take some time to calm down, whether that's by meditating, taking a walk, something else, maybe listening to music, venting to your friend, whichever it is. Give yourself some space from the situation to feel your feelings and to decide whether this is something that you want to bring up to someone else, which is that next step. Decide whether it's worth engaging. Your mental health is the most important thing here. So if you feel that your mental health is going to be hurt by engaging in the conflict, then obviously you have to think about that. Just remember that once you have started engaging in conflict and you're working towards conflict resolution, that communication becomes super important. If you feel that it's becoming a mental drain on yourself, make sure you mention it, but make sure that you say, how you're going to move forward, whether that's saying, I need space from this, but let's go back to this week, or can we start resolving this conflict some other way? It's important that if you enter into managing a conflict, that you make it through to that resolution stage, at least to a place where both people feel that they've come to some agreement, whether they're both happy with it or not. If it is worth engaging in the conflict, work to reach a resolution. Speak in I feel language and not you did. It is your feelings that are presenting that situation. The person that did something may not have intended to make you feel some kind of way, but what's important is that you felt that way. And that's what you want to focus on. Afterwards, you should decide which conflict approach would be the most appropriate for whichever situation you're at. Like we said before, most of the time, a collaborative approach would reach the best outcome for both parties. But again, this relies heavily on communication. If you both have to be able to communicate and say whether you like the resolution, you don't like the resolution. Otherwise, it's just going to stall out the conversation. And as it leads into here, if it's clear that the conflict is reaching an impasse, whether that's due to a reluctant party or another reason, look at ways to maintain any necessary relationships. You don't necessarily have to be friends with someone, but when you're in class, when you're in an office environment, when you're in whatever with work class partnerships, you have to be able to work together in a way that's healthy for both. If being around someone is still a mental drain on you, then you need to figure out a way to get that conflict through the impasse because your mental health is being affected by it, whether that's using a mediator or some other way. And the next point that we'd like to bring to you is how to set boundaries. It's okay to say no and set up some boundaries for your time. And the way that you determine what boundaries to set is totally up to you and where you're at in your own mental health. So there's that graph there on the bottom right side. If something is urgent and important, then that is something that you do have to do right away. Seems pretty reasonable. Or if it's not urgent and not important, then try to get rid of it trying to make sure that you don't have to do it. Then you have, if it's important and not urgent, then you just have to make sure that it's on your priority list somewhere, and make sure that it gets done by whatever deadline is there, but you have a little bit of flexibility there. And if it's urgent and not important, then you need to find somebody else to help you out with it, or figure out a way to make it quick and easy. Sometimes there are times where those important and urgent things just pile up on you, and they need to get done right away. And those periods of time suck, but remember that you do have resources through your friends, through your peers, that can at least help you manage your mental health during that time, if not help you with an assignment or something. We also see here the flow chart on the left. So if somebody thinks that you'd be great for something and asks you to do it, there's usually, most people that I found, I know that I do this, I just go ahead and I say yes right away. And sometimes it takes me a little while, and then I figure out, actually, I can't, do the thing. So one thing that I've tried to start doing for myself is to follow this flow chart here rather than just jumping in blindly. So first, determine if you even want to do whatever it is that they're asking you to do. If you do, then you take a look at your calendar, list of responsibilities, and see if you even have the time to do this thing. If you can, then make sure that you say yes. And then if you're transparent and you communicate about any other commitments that you have, that's great. If you're not really feeling like you want to do the thing, you don't have to do it. You're not obligated to do anything that is outside of your comfort zone. Just make sure that you're respectful and, thank them for thinking of you, offer a solution. You don't have to take that on your boat if you don't have to. If you're not really sure if you want to do the thing, try to think to yourself how that activity could be beneficial to you, whether that's through networking or, maybe it's a really good resume builder, who knows? So if it is something that could help you reach an eventual potential goal, then, check your list of responsibilities again, check your calendar, and then see if you can say yes. If it can't really help you, if it doesn't really benefit you, at least see if it seems fun. If it doesn't seem fun, then that seems like something that you don't want to do. So just make sure above all else that you take stock of what your own bandwidth is at that moment. Everybody understands that there are things that sometimes come up. You can't always control for what your mental health is going to be like in a week, a day, or even, the next hour. Sometimes life just comes at you fast. But at least take stock of where you're at that moment. And always make sure to leave yourself some room in your calendar for events that you don't necessarily see coming. A packed calendar is harder to move around.
I think that's all we have for today. So we'll open it up for questions. You can see on the slide, we have our email and our website there. So you can always contact us there and then visit our website for more information about us. And there's a lot of fun stuff on the website, so definitely check that out. But also, shameless plug, if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're kind of trying to grow our presence there. So we'd appreciate some new followers as we kind of churn out content here. But yeah, thank you everybody for your attention. We'll open it up for questions.
I'm going to go check the question form just real fast. I know that I can at least speak to Todoist, that app. It's one of my favorite things in the world. If anybody is questioning whether or not you want to get it, you can actually sort things into projects. So you can have like an overarching, fall of 2021 project, and then within it you can have sub projects for every single class. You can leave comments on every single to-do task. You can add it to your schedule. It works with your Google Calendar, so you can actually schedule tasks and when they need to get done. You can upload files. You can actually even make a shared to-do list where if everybody has a Todoist account or just provides an email, then they can all be on the one Todoist and collaboratively work together and assign tasks. So I highly recommend.
Also, full disclosure, though, I think some of those features you just mentioned are subscription only. So there is the free version that you can get that comes with like the basic features, but some of those you will have to pay for if you want the full version.
I totally forgot that I used the paid version. Michael is right. Apologies. I don't actually remember which features are free and which ones aren't. If no one else has any questions or comments, I don't think there's anything in the anonymous form. So we can go ahead and wrap it up here if everybody is agreeable. Okay, I got